So, what really makes a civilization great? Is it all about the gold in the treasury, the brilliant art, or is it about something deeper, like the strength of its moral compass? Today, we're going to explore two incredibly powerful empires from ancient India that took very, very different paths to leave their mark on history.
Yeah, let's just dive right into that big question. How do you measure greatness? Is it in wealth and art, or is it in justice and compassion? We're going to look at this through two amazing examples. The Gupta Empire, which pretty much wrote the book on what a golden age is, and the Mauryan Empire, which was led by a ruler who chose a radically different path.
Okay, first things first, let's get our terms straight. When you hear historians talk about a golden age, this is what they mean. It's kind of like a perfect storm, right? You've got peace, you've got money, you've got security, and all of that creates the space for culture and science to just explode with new ideas. It's really the foundation that brilliance is built on. So, our first case study, the Gupta Empire, is the absolute textbook definition of this. For more than 2 centuries, this empire wasn't just a powerhouse, it was this incredible incubator for ideas and art that would literally change the world forever. Okay, let's really get into this because the contributions here are just staggering. I mean, think about the math you use every single day. Gupta scholars were the ones who came up with the decimal point, who wrapped their heads around the idea of negative numbers, who calculated a remarkably close value for pi, and who made these huge leaps forward in trigonometry. But their single greatest contribution? It was this, the concept of zero, as a number. And you really can't overstate how revolutionary this was. It is the absolute foundation for everything from algebra to the computer code that's running right now. It fundamentally changed our ability to understand the universe, a total game changer. And this wasn't just an age of numbers, it was an age of words and incredible beauty. Rulers like Chandragupta II were huge patrons of the arts. He had this whole court that included a circle of scholars known as the Nine Gems. And the brightest of them all was Kalidasa, a poet and playwright whose work is so foundational that he's often called the Shakespeare of India. And their mastery wasn't just on paper. I mean, they carved these breathtaking shrines, like the famous Ajanta caves, directly into solid rock. They were also masters of metallurgy. And the proof? The Iron Pillar of Delhi. Get this. It has been standing for over 1,500 years and has barely rusted. That is just a mind-boggling testament to their skill. So the big question is, how? How does a society create the perfect conditions for this kind of incredible explosion of creativity and knowledge? Well, it wasn't magic. It was a powerful engine built on strategy and economics. And here's the key insight, really. For genius to flourish, you need stability. Artists and scientists can't do their best work if they're worried about war or, where their next meal is coming from. A society has to be wealthy enough to support them and secure enough to protect them. The Guptas basically had a formula for this. They used smart military alliances and expansion to build a huge, secure empire. The government then taxed trade and land, and, crucially, used that money to fund scholars and artists. They created standardized coins to make trade easier, and they controlled the coastal ports, giving them a gateway to rich sea trade routes. Geography was really their secret weapon. The Gupta Empire sat right at the crossroads of the ancient world, connecting the legendary Silk Roads. This wasn't just a highway for money and goods. It was a superhighway for ideas, constantly feeding their golden age with new knowledge and new perspectives from all over. Okay, so now let's hit the rewind button. We're going to go back about 600 years before the Guptas to another massive Indian empire, the Mauryan Empire. And here we're going to find a very, very different definition of power. What if a ruler decided that the ultimate goal wasn't more conquest or more wealth, but the well-being of his people? This is the incredible story of Emperor Ashoka, a man whose profound change of heart would change the course of an entire empire. So Ashoka started his reign pretty much like you'd expect, as a ruthless conqueror, expanding his family's empire through brutal, bloody warfare. But one particular battle, the Kalinga War, was so devastatingly violent that it led to this moment of profound regret. This crisis of conscience pushed him to convert to Buddhism and completely remake his entire philosophy of rule, basing it on what's known as dharma, or moral law. Just look at that number, 100,000. That's the estimated death toll from a single battle. For most emperors, that's just a statistic of victory, a number on a scorecard. But for Ashoka, the weight of what he called the slaughter, death, and deportation just crushed him. It filled him with, in his own words, profound sorrow and regret, and it completely changed the course of his life and his empire. So, how do you communicate a total change of heart to an entire empire? Well, Ashoka's solution was both radical and permanent. He literally carved his new philosophy into stone, putting these massive pillars with his edicts in public spaces for everyone to see and read. And the messages on these pillars were just revolutionary. Take this quote. It completely reframes the relationship between a ruler and his people. He's not just a conqueror anymore. He's a father. And his goal is the welfare and happiness of his people, just like he would want for his own kids. And this wasn't just talk, not at all. His edicts laid out this incredibly comprehensive public welfare program. He banned animal sacrifices, he established hospitals for both people and animals, and he ordered wells to be dug and shade trees planted along roads for travelers. He even created a special class of officers just to make sure these moral laws were actually being followed. And maybe most remarkably of all, Ashoka established an official policy of religious tolerance. I mean, think about it. In an age of constant conquest, he declared that praising your own religion while trashing others actually harms your own faith. He believed contact between religions was a good thing, a truly progressive idea for the 3rd century BCE. And so here we are. We're left with two totally distinct models of a great empire. On the one hand, you've got the Guptas. Their greatness was built on a foundation of prosperity that fueled incredible innovation. And on the other, the Mauryans under Ashoka, whose greatness was built on a foundation of moral law that put justice and welfare first. So let's break it down real quick. You have one path to greatness that's rooted in moral law, dharma, and it leaves behind a legacy of ethical government. Then you have another path rooted in economic might that leaves behind a legacy of science and art. Two profoundly different philosophies, both creating powerful, lasting empires. Which brings us right back to our original question. As we look back through history, what should we value more? The dazzling breakthroughs and the beautiful art that a golden age produces, or the compassionate principles and the ethical framework a society tries to live by? There's no easy answer, but it's definitely something worth thinking about.